Next is terrace houses. So terrace houses, depending on where you live in the country, might be the mainstream housing stock for your area, especially areas of the northeast or the northwest, where you have lots of rows of terrace houses that were built for typically workers in a particular area. Maybe there was a lot of industry or factories or coal mining, and that's the housing type that kind of was developed way back when the area started to really kind of grow, and you can see these kind of terrace houses dominating streets and kind of landscapes. Or even maybe you're in an area like a city that's maybe kind of some affluence at some period of time. You've got lots of Victorian or Edwardian type properties, and again, terraces can make up a large section of the housing stock in that area. And terraces can often be the main property type that people look at because, well, for a host of reasons, but they usually cover most bases. So you'll find 2 and 3 bedroom type terrace houses. You might even find slightly larger ones. They also are usually slightly lower in terms of asset costs for a given area. So it's very often the entry point for houses in a location. Slightly cheaper than many semi-detached houses, cheaper often than many detached houses in a given area, but still give you a fantastic space for any kind of tenant profile that you're looking for, whether it's an individual or a family or a couple. Terrace houses can be a good fit for that. Some terrace houses, you might have heard of something, or you might see something called back-to-back, where they'll be built kind of literally back-to-back of each other, and you don't necessarily have much external or outside space, which can be problematic for some tenants, but it can be kind of very standard as a property type in some areas. And then you also have some terrace houses where it's maybe just a small yard, and even some terrace houses where you have maybe a nice kind of external rear or front garden. So I wouldn't say necessarily it's just go for one particular type of terrace, or only go for a terrace, for example, with a garden, or only go for a terrace, for example, with a yard space, because it's very much going to be dependent on your area. Once you've narrowed down your location, terrace houses can be a property type to consider. One thing that we typically find with terrace houses is that maintenance, very often when you're buying them, unless it's been recently refurbished, you're likely going to have to look at things like damp proofing, very often because of when they were built. Again, depending on when they were refurbished, you're going to be looking at probably things like electrics or new plumbing or central heating possibly, and then you start to get into the mix of maybe what sort of property work you're going to have to be doing in terms of, do you need to do a full refurbishment on this property, or is it a mainstream kind of liquor paint, new carpet, something quite basic to try and get that property up and running. Terrace houses can be fantastic for your mainstream tenant profiles. It can be fantastic for resale, so it's good homeowner demand typically for terrace houses. But one of the things I would say to kind of consider with terraces is your room sizes, because some terraces can be very narrow, or some terraces can have really small third bedrooms or secondary kind of bedrooms, where you might have to consider, actually, is this a bedroom space, is it more of an office space, or is it more of a kind of a nursery or a cot kind of room, if it were. So something to kind of look out for when you're looking at terrace houses. If you're searching on things like Rightmove or Zoopla or other property portals, you might see it marketed as a 3-bedroom, but that third bedroom might be really small. So it's well worth having a look at the description if you do find a property you like, looking at the room sizes and seeing what sort of room sizes you have to play with. Very often rooms smaller than sort of 6.5 square meters can be, especially if it's a strange angled type room, can be very difficult to make work as a bedroom space. So ideally 6.5 square meters or above. 8 square meters or above is perfect very often for kind of bedroom spaces, or if you're looking for kind of bigger bedrooms, 10 square meters and above usually offers the most space, and that's where you see it in kind of your first bedroom or your second bedroom in most terrace houses or most property types. But absolutely, terrace houses are well worth kind of considering, and we see it's usually the entry point for most people when they're looking at houses in terms of property types.